Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Game Master and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Double Dragon 4 by Arc System Works. Now I was originally going to do a versus comparison between this and Double Dragon Neon by Wayforwards. Why would I want to do that? Because both companies kind of have a similar reputation of updating classic licenses to the modern days with some varying degrees of success. Both game companies have worked on the Contra licenses for Konami, with Wayforwards making Contra 4 and Arc System making Hardcore Uprising. Both are really good games. Now we have a Double Dragon license done by both of them, and while I would like to do a comparison video between Wayforwards Double Dragon Neon and Double Dragon 4, unfortunately Wayforwards Double Dragon Neon would win hands down on every type of thing I could compare them to. Why? Because Neon realized that the Double Dragon formula hasn't aged well and did a lot to improve it. Arc System Works design sticks to the original NES version, and it quickly becomes apparent that it has aged like milk. When it comes to the story, the Double Dragon 4 storyline starts off in a post-apocalyptic future in which nuclear weapons have been used and crime and exploitation are on a rise. The only hope the world has come in two honorable brothers known as the Double Dragon who fight for justice and live in America. On the way home, crossing the California desert, the two run into some bad guys. After several fights, they find out their friend Marion has been kidnapped and taken to Japan and travel there to fight some more bad guys. Yeah, the story is really simple, and before you go, well, over-the-top homages to the 80s classics like Mad Max and Running Man means there's some humorous send-ups there, you would be completely wrong. Every cutscene is pretty much the last boss telling Billy and Jimmy where to go next to beat up some more bad guys. The story's not interesting and there is absolutely no humor. Unlike that other better game which has a villain and plot that pretty much sends up 1980s pop culture reference every few minutes, this game's story is just really lame. And also, unlike Double Dragon Neon, which didn't need these cutscenes to tell its story, this one feels the need to ram them down our throats, and they are completely pointless. All I can say is that the gameplay here is a bit of a mess. Like your standard 90s brawler, your mission is to go in one direction, beat the crap out of a group of enemies, and move on to beat up more bad guys until you get to the end of the mission. Double Dragon 4 not only does this, but it also does it very poorly. The controls feel stiff, and the special moves and retaliations are just hard to pull off. Yes, I know Double Dragon 2 and I guess 3, which I haven't played, had similar hard-to-use controls, but that was a bad thing back then and not a good thing even now to have in this modern game, and to keep those in there just makes this game really, really crappy. Oh, and it gets worse. There is no recovery time, so whenever you get hit and knocked down, meaning that a group of bad guys surrounds you, you're in for a frustrating time trying to get up, retaliate, and just get out of the situation, and more often than not, you will usually wind up dying. And oh, if you're wondering if they stuck to only 2 to 3 bad guys like an NES game would due to hardware limitations, the answer is no. There can be 4 to 5 bad guys on screen at a time, and this makes the situation even worse. The good news is the developers were smart enough to put in an actual jump button, but the game almost feels like it's encouraging you to press both punch and kick to jump, just like the good old days, and if you try that, it makes the platforming jumps even harder. Oh yeah, there's platforming sections in here too, and if you fall off and die, you lose a life. There are no way to gain extra lives, and you're limited on continues. Now, the first time through, I did think this game was actually crazy enough to limit the amount of continues, and game over sends you back to the title screen. The good news, though, is pressing options on the controller several times lets you select any stage you've beaten, so game over only sends you 2 stages back. It's quite a penalty, but the game is nice enough to give you the equivalent of 15 lives before it's game over. But still, it's just the frustrating way enemies can beat the crap out of you. Frustrating level designs that involve mazes and quick death pits towards the end of the game, and it just feels like the game is cheap, boring, and frustrating. And I can say the basic gameplay in this just isn't very fun. Now there is some good news in the fact that after you beat the game, a tower mode is unlocked. Now this is just a survival mode and all the problems with the main game still apply here. The good news though is you get to unlock new characters for the story mode. It means if you get far enough here and you get to play through the main game as bad guy characters like a Bobo, and who hasn't wanted to wreak havoc at this gigantic bad guy character. It saves it from the worse than E.T. bin, but it's still a really bad game. I'll give credit where credit is due. The graphics are nice and hit the sweet spot to what the developers were wanting to do. They look like the NES the way you remembered it and are upscaled really well into HD. There are 8-bit sprites, but they look really good in HD with some wonderful smoothing on them. This is what I remember the NES looking like. Add in some awesome background and the game just looks fabulous. Sound-wise, the music is really great and it remixes the Double Dragon tunes and music from the NES games. They're still 8-bit sounding, but these have obviously been touched up just a little bit and they sound really good. And the sound effects are really great, sounding like old 8-bit games, so I have no complaints on the sound. At least it sounds like what they were attempting to do, like it's a really well-polished NES game, and it sounds just like it. My final thoughts on this is Double Dragon 4 tries hard to be one of those neo-retro games like Shantae or Shovel Knight that makes you think back to the NES and SNES days and all of their glories, but it hits too close to home and recaptures more of their imperfections. Things that people who are busy being swept up in a wave of nostalgia don't really want to think about. And these things just jump out as glaringly obvious, and because of that, I can't recommend this game at all. Especially if you're thinking about getting the game off of Steam, which has a better Double Dragon game with Double Dragon Neon. If you're looking for a Double Dragon game, definitely get Neon. As for PS4 owners, you might just ask why the hell Sony hasn't offered any backwards compatibility support yet, because Double Dragon Neon is available to you Xbox One owners through the backwards compatibility option. This is Tommy the Game Master, thanking you for watching this video. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. I would also love you to subscribe to my channel and become a part of my community. I'll see you guys later.